Hi there, and welcome back to LeanReads, the channel where we share powerful insights and personal growth lessons through great books. What if animals think and feel more than we've ever allowed ourselves to believe? From the loyalty of wolves to the wisdom of elephants and the voices of whales, Carl Safina's Beyond Words takes us deep into the secret lives of animals and reveals a world that is both astonishing and familiar. If you enjoy what you hear and want to dive deeper, we've included a link to the book in the description below. Now, let's get started. Published in 2015, Beyond Words, What Animals Think and Feel takes readers on a remarkable journey into the rich inner worlds of animals. Carl Safina guides us through the mysteries of the natural world, revealing how animals think, experience emotions, and learn in ways more complex and profound than we often imagine. Beyond Words is not a dry scientific treatise, is a powerful statement on the complexity and diversity of animal minds. Its author, Carl Safina, is the founding president of the Safina Center at Stony Brook University and a fellow at the Alan Alda Center for Communicating Science. With a unique combination of scientific rigor and storytelling, he offers readers an intimate, persuasive view into the inner lives of animals. Safina has long been a prominent voice in conservation. His essays have appeared in leading publications such as National Geographic and the New York Times, and he has hosted a PBS television series exploring our connection with the living world. Beyond Words is the culmination of decades of research and first-hand experience, blending science, observation, and philosophy. From humanity's earliest days, we have lived alongside animals. We have feared them, worshipped them, domesticated them, and even welcomed them into our homes as companions. Yet, how much do we truly understand about what goes on in their minds? Do they think? Do they feel? And if so, how do they experience thought and emotion? Answering these questions is far more complex than it first appears. To begin, we must put aside our assumptions and recognize animals as individuals, each with their own needs, perceptions, and inner lives that may be profoundly different from ours. Only then can we begin to glimpse their worldview. The evidence is astonishing. A wealth of research has shown that animals are capable of thought, feeling, and communication in ways both intricate and surprising. This journey into the hidden world of animal minds will forever change the way you see them. Along the way, you'll discover how wild wolves transformed into humanity's most loyal companions, the colorful and dramatic love lives of chimpanzees, the mysterious language of killer whales. We share traits with animals, but their minds are entirely their own puppy dog eyes, is a phrase familiar to anyone who has lived with a dog. Many of us have melted at the sight of that soulful, sad gaze. But are emotions exclusive to humans, or do the creatures around us also know joy, sorrow, anger, and affection? Two ideas have long been obstacles to understanding the inner worlds of animals: anthropomorphism and anthropocentrism. Scientists are trained to observe objectively, which often leads them to avoid attributing human-like emotions or motives to animals. For example, a researcher might describe, in neutral terms, that a mother elephant is standing between her calf and a hyena, but hesitate to conclude that she is protecting her young because the action could, in theory, have many explanations. Anthropocentrism, on the other hand, argues that humans are the only species capable of thought and emotion in a truly unique way. But if animals cannot think or feel, by what right do we decide their fates? Safina argues that instead of denying animals' inner lives or projecting ours onto them, we should recognize that they possess their own thoughts and feelings, shaped by their unique sensory worlds. A mother elephant, with her extraordinary hearing, may detect distant footsteps or an approaching truck long before her human handler notices. Her behavior flows from her perception, not ours. Ignoring this truth blinds us to the real reasons behind her actions. It is therefore essential to acknowledge both the similarities and differences between species and, even between individuals. Just as every human being is unique, so too is every elephant, wolf, chimpanzee, or bird. Humans and animals share a long evolutionary history and many survival goals: reproduction, food, and shelter. Given so many shared traits, it seems absurd to claim that animals cannot think or feel. But how, exactly, can we prove it? Experiments and theories struggle to unlock the animal mind. Suppose you were asked to design an experiment to reveal what an animal is thinking. Where would you even begin? One of the most common approaches is the theory of mind test, the ability to understand what another individual is thinking and respond accordingly. In 1978, researchers tested chimpanzees by showing them short films of humans facing problems, such as being cold or unable to reach a banana. The chimps were then asked to choose between images related to solutions, like a fireplace or a stick. The results suggested the chimps failed the test, leading scientists to conclude that they lacked a theory of mind. Yet, in the wild, chimpanzees demonstrate the opposite. Among chimpanzee troops, only the alpha male is normally allowed to mate with females. Lower-ranking males sometimes deliberately provoke the alpha, knowing he will lash out, thus creating a distraction that allows them to sneak in a mating opportunity. Such behavior shows they can anticipate the thoughts and reactions of others. This contradiction highlights a broader issue. Laboratory experiments often fail to capture the complexity of animals' real mental lives. Another famous example is the mirror test, in which a spot is marked on an animal's forehead before placing it in front of a mirror. If the animal touches or tries to remove the mark, we conclude it recognizes itself. But passing or failing the mirror test does not truly measure self-awareness. It only proves whether the animal understands the concept of reflection. Even studying brain structure offers limited answers. For instance, the albatross has a brain remarkably similar in form to the human brain. Yet its intelligence expresses itself differently. These seabirds may not think like us, but their survival depends on extraordinary abilities, such as navigating thousands of miles across oceans in brutal conditions. Domestication as the key to understanding certain animals and our relationship with them. Everyone knows that domestic dogs descended from wild wolves, but few realize just how extraordinary the journey of domestication has been. In fact, dogs essentially domesticated themselves. Contrary to popular belief, humans did not actively breed wolves into dogs through planned selection. Instead, wolves that were bold enough to linger near human settlements had easier access to leftover food. These less fearful wolves reproduced more successfully, gradually evolving into what we now call dogs. But this bargain came with trade-offs. In exchange for safety and food, dogs lost much of their independent survival instincts. For example, when faced with a locked box, wolves will persist in trying to solve the puzzle on their own, whereas dogs typically look to humans for help. Domestication not only changed canine behavior, but also altered their appearance. The famous Siberian fox experiments showed that friendliness and physical traits, such as floppy ears and curled tails, are genetically linked. When researchers selectively bred the friendliest foxes, These features became more common in subsequent generations. Interestingly, selection does not always require direct human intervention. Among chimpanzees, alpha males maintain dominance and reproductive access through aggression. By contrast, in bonobos, close relative females dominate, and gentle, cooperative males are favored as mates. Over time, this natural selection for friendliness has made bonobos more peaceful than chimpanzees. Domestication does not fully explain the mystery of animal intelligence, but it sheds light on why humans sometimes misunderstand their behavior. For instance, people may call dogs stupid for staying loyal even to abusive owners. But this is not due to a lack of intelligence, it is because dogs have learned, through thousands of years of adaptation, that loyalty to the food giver is the key to survival. The mammalian brain closer to ours than we think. It may surprise you to learn that the basic structure of the human brain is remarkably similar to that of other mammals. This similarity reveals much about their capacity for thought. With comparable brains and hormonal systems, many mammals act, feel, and even think in ways parallel to our own. They demonstrate awareness, self-consciousness, and the ability to learn from experience. For example, young elephants learn which plants are edible by watching older elephants and sampling the foods they eat. This shows that while animals may perceive the world differently, they too possess consciousness. For decades, scientists argued that animals could not have awareness because their cerebral cortices were too small. Yet the case of Roger, a man who lost 95% of his cortex to infection but retained self-awareness, proved otherwise. Brain research also sheds light on how animals experience emotions. Oxytocin, often called the bonding hormone, plays a vital role in forming attachments in both humans and mammals. When oxytocin is blocked, both become more withdrawn and antisocial. Such parallels highlight the shared emotional architecture across species. But what about animals with small brains? Do they lack the ability to feel? Not necessarily. Brain size alone is not a reliable measure of intelligence. A more telling indicator is how closely an animal's brain structure resembles ours. Larger brains can process more information, but not all species require this. For instance, tuna have smaller brains than dolphins, but they are still formidable predators. Where brain size does matter is in the development of complex communication and social cooperation. In species where group survival depends on coordination, bigger social brains evolve. Chimpanzees, for instance, employ sophisticated strategies to assert dominance within their troops. For socially advanced animals like primates, elephants, whales, and dolphins, it becomes difficult to deny their ability to think and feel when their brain structures so closely mirror our own. Elephants live in tight-knit herds. Built on cooperation and care, anyone who has watched elephants knows they live in herds, a clear sign of their complex social lives. Elephants can recognize relationships within the group, such as which calf belongs to which mother. This ability is known as third-party relationship awareness, and it is crucial for the survival and smooth functioning of the herd. Elephant societies are led by experienced matriarchs who carry the memory and knowledge of the group. When a matriarch dies, another female takes her place, or sometimes the herd splits or merges with another. Remembering the locations of water and food is vital, requiring a brain capable of advanced learning and adaptation. At birth, an elephant calf's brain weighs only about 35% of its adult size, far less than the 90% typical in most mammals. This leaves extraordinary room for development, allowing them to absorb the lessons and culture of the herd. Elephants are also remarkable cooperators. If one becomes lost, the others search for it. When a member is injured, others will feed and tend to it. This empathy-driven care is similar to human compassion. Like us, elephants release oxytocin when helping others, reinforcing positive feelings through altruistic behavior. Why do elephants have such tightly organized and compassionate societies? The answer lies in their reproductive cycle. Male elephants enter musth after the age of 30, a yearly surge of reproductive hormones that makes them aggressive and highly competitive for months. Females, however, go into estrus only around age 11, and each cycle lasts a mere 4 days. If they conceive, they remain pregnant for nearly 2 years, then nurse their calf for another 2. As a result, a female is fertile only 4 days out of every 4 years, driving intense competition among males. This reproductive challenge makes rearing a calf a monumental effort, requiring constant protection. To reduce disruption, elephant families are matriarchal, with calves raised among females, while adult males eventually leave the group. Human actions have shaped animal awareness. Imagine being chased by someone with a gun. You would feel terror. Animals respond in the same way, and human actions have left deep marks on their behavior. Orcas once systematically hunted elephants with machine guns. Saw their populations collapse during the 20th century. Viewed as competitors by fishermen, they were slaughtered or captured, with young orcas sold to marine parks. As a result, orcas altered their behavior, avoiding traditional migration routes and certain regions altogether. Although large-scale hunting was banned across most of North America in the 1970s, it continues in places like Greenland and Indonesia. Elephants, too, have suffered devastating losses from human greed. Poaching for ivory decimated African elephant populations that once roamed the continent widely. Even after a global ban on the ivory trade in 1990, habitat loss and food scarcity continue to shrink their numbers. In Kenya, while the human population has quadrupled in 40 years, elephant populations have plummeted by 80%. These pressures have given elephants striking new survival strategies. For example, elephants in Kenya and Tanzania fear the Maasai people, semi-nomadic herders, who often spear elephants to protect their cattle. Researchers tested this by offering elephants 3 t-shirts, one worn by a Maasai man, one by a local farmer, and one by a scientist. The elephants reacted with fear only to the Maasai shirt, proving they can identify dangerous smells. Similarly, they responded calmly to English voices but became agitated at Maasai voices. Elephants, then, can distinguish and remember different human groups. Yet neither elephants nor orcas show indiscriminate hostility toward humans. In fact, elephants often approach people peacefully. Orcas have almost never attacked humans in the wild, only in captivity. Some accounts even describe orcas helping people in distress, shielding them from sharks. These stories suggest that while human actions can shape animal awareness and fear, animals themselves often extend a kind of cautious goodwill, reminding us of the fragile balance between our species and theirs. Wolves live in complex societies and show generosity. An elephant's brain may rival our own in size and complexity. But what about other species? For a long time, people imagined wolf packs ruled by a single dominant alpha male. In reality, every member of the pack plays a role, from the alpha female and breeding partners to the youngest pups. The alpha male depends on his mate to rear offspring and to hunt together, and the whole pack functions as a cooperative unit. This teamwork is essential because wolves are among the few predators willing to take on prey larger than themselves, such as moose. Such hunts require coordination, speed, and strength. Each wolf contributes. Some excel at chasing, others at wrestling prey to the ground. Hunts must be quick. Ending before a moose's dangerous antlers can inflict fatal injuries. Thus, alpha pairs need to be confident leaders, but not overly aggressive. Excessively domineering wolves fracture the cohesion of the pack and may even be overthrown. Disputes often divide wolves into factions, and leaders who mistreat pack members risk losing their authority. Wolves are not only strategic, but also surprisingly generous. A striking example comes from Yellowstone National Park, where wolves were reintroduced in 1995 to restore ecological balance. Among them was a legendary wolf known as 21. Despite his dominance and strength, 21 never killed a rival wolf in his pack. He allowed pups to nip at him during play, aware of how his actions were perceived. 21 always prevailed in battles, but because defeated rivals automatically lost status, he never needed to kill to secure his place. His power and restraint gave him access to mates and food without unnecessary bloodshed, proving that even apex predators can embody generosity and wisdom. Every wolf is different, yet history has branded them as fierce. Just as every human has an individual personality, so do animals. Recognizing individuality in wild animals is a relatively new area of study, but wolves show it vividly. Take 06, the granddaughter of 21, renowned as an extraordinary hunter. She once brought down to moose in a single hunt, a feat unmatched in wolf lore. Under her leadership, her pack thrived. But when Yellowstone's harsh winter limited food, the pack was forced to roam beyond the park's boundaries. During this perilous migration, 06 and several of her pups were killed. Her pack mourned deeply, wandering frantically in search of her before collapsing into disarray. Without her leadership, rivalries erupted, poor choices multiplied, and the once strong pack dissolved. Her story illustrates how a wolf's individual character, her charisma and skills can shape the fate of an entire group. Other species also remember personalities, even across species lines. Crows, for example, can recognize human researchers years after being trapped and tagged by them. They scold and mob these individuals relentlessly, which is why scientists often wear masks to avoid retaliation. Despite such individuality, wolves have long carried the burden of human prejudice. Literature and folklore cast them as villains, the embodiment of wilderness, savagery, and chaos. In medieval Europe, the church even encouraged wolf hunts, branding them as agents of the devil. Yet, not all human relationships with predators were hostile. Indigenous peoples often held more respectful, balanced relationships with wolves, lions, and tigers. In Siberia, tigers historically coexisted peacefully, with people rarely attacking humans until new settlers arrived with different attitudes, bringing violence and fear. Killer whales have advanced yet divided societies at first glance. With their sharp teeth and formidable appearance, killer whales may look like the T-Rex of the seas. But upon closer examination, they reveal a world of surprises. They are highly intelligent, cooperative, generous, and remarkably pose no threat to humans. What makes them so different? Killer whales live within highly complex social systems, where mothers are the central pillars. Families are typically led by a matriarch, and while individuals may mate outside the group, they always return to their mother's pod. These matriarchs act as keepers of treasure maps, remembering migration routes and the best feeding grounds. Each family communicates with its own dialect, or call. Families within a pod share certain calls in common, creating bonds of identity. Multiple pods with related dialects form larger clans, which socialize among themselves, but remain distinct from other clans. Astonishingly, matriarchs continue to lead long after menopause. This phenomenon is rare in the animal kingdom, where most non-reproducing individuals are disadvantaged. For killer whales, however, older females are vital. Research shows that males under 30 are 3 times more likely to die if their mother is gone, while females over 30 are 2.5 times more likely to die without maternal guidance. Killer whales are also highly sexual creatures. This is true even for postmenopausal females and same-sex pairs. Observers have recorded orcas engaging in self-stimulation, rubbing against boats, or caressing one another during courtship-like behaviors. Yet, despite these similarities, orca societies are sharply divided. Communities that eat fish never mix with those that hunt mammals. They avoid one another, and genetic evidence suggests they may represent separate species in the making, even though they are still officially classified as one. Killer whales communicate in complex ways. Killer whales possess astonishing communication skills, but human sensory limits prevent us from fully decoding their messages. Sound travels farther in water than in air, and orcas are masters of acoustics. Their calls span broad frequencies and can travel for hundreds of miles under the seawell beyond human hearing capacity. Their echolocation is a prime example. By emitting clicks and listening for returning echoes, they can identify prey, obstacles, and even communicate across distances up to 150 miles. Our vision, too, is limited. We see only a narrow slice of the electromagnetic spectrum. Other animals perceive worlds we cannot bat-see with sonar. Bees detect ultraviolet patterns on flowers, and some fish perceive polarized light. Humans, however, can sometimes learn to mimic such abilities. Daniel Kish, a blind American advocate, mastered echolocation by producing tongue clicks and listening to echoes. He navigates independently, even riding a bicycle in traffic, proving that sound can become a form of vision. Animals also use vibrations, scents, and low-frequency signals to communicate in ways invisible to us. Elephants, for instance, rumble in infrasound vibrations, too low for humans to hear, that travel for miles through the ground, connecting distant herds. Many species use smell to mark territory, find mates, or signal danger. And animals can even grasp aspects of human language. Experiments show Hawaiian dolphins not only understand commands, but also differentiate syntax and meaning, recognizing the difference between "take the ring from person," a two-person bee, and the reverse. These examples reveal a simple truth. Animals are communicating in ways more sophisticated than we once imagined. We've only begun to scratch the surface of the intelligence and communication networks shaping the hidden worlds of the animal kingdom. We often interpret the animal world through the narrow lens of our own human experience. This perspective creates a barrier that prevents us from truly understanding the depth and richness of other species' minds. In reality, animals possess an inner world far more complex than we imagine. They think, feel, and display a wide range of skills and emotions, much like ourselves. A common misconception is that certain abilities are unique to humans. Yet science continues to prove otherwise. Traits once thought to define humanity alone, such as teaching, are found across the animal kingdom. A mother orca, for example, teaches her calf how to hunt by carefully guiding its first attempts. Similarly, a mother cat brings home live prey so her kittens can watch, practice, and hone their own hunting skills. The truth is clear. Animals are not simple beings, reacting mechanically to instinct. They are learners, teachers, thinkers, and feelers. Rather than imposing human-centered judgments, we should widen our perspective and approach them with curiosity and respect. When we do, we begin to see the extraordinary diversity of minds around us and realize that the gap between us and them is much smaller than we once believed. Reading beyond words was a humbling experience. Carl Safina Dosen. T. Just Present Faxi invites us to look into the eyes of animals and reconsider what it means to share this planet with them. Page after page, I found myself questioning the invisible walls we built between us and them. What struck me most was how often animals mirror the very qualities we pride ourselves on: loyalty, empathy, cooperation, even teaching. Wolves that share food, elephants that grieve, orcas that guide their young. These are not random behaviors but expressions of intelligence and emotion that feel profoundly familiar. For me, the book is less about animals alone, and more about whether we are willing to shed our arrogance and recognize kinship where we once saw only difference. It reminds us that to understand animals is also to understand ourselves, our place in nature, our responsibilities, and our capacity for compassion. Beyond Words leaves you with a sense of wonder, but also with an urgent call to listen more closely to the voices of the living world we too often silence. Perhaps the real question is not whether animals think like us, but whether we are willing to see them as they truly are. Beyond Words reminds us that every creature carries a story worth listening to, and the more we listen, the more human we become.